The Persian rug beneath my feet was so thick I couldn't feel the floor beneath it, like walking on clouds while drowning. My clipboard trembled against my chest, the metal edge pressing hard enough to leave a mark through my blouse. I focused on that pressure, anything to keep from thinking about how far I'd strayed from where I was supposed to be. I'd been coordinating silent auctions at the Davide estate for 8 months now, always in the East Wing ballroom, always surrounded by staff and guests. Tonight, security had redirected me through the private corridors because of some incident with the main entrance. Of course, because my life wasn't desperate enough without wandering through rooms where Cupido Davide himself might appear. The hallway stretched before me like a throat waiting to swallow me whole, all dark wood paneling and oil paintings of men with cold eyes. The air was heavy with jasmine and something darker, leather and smoke and money that smelled like power. My heels clicked softly on the hardwood, each step a confession, announcing that I didn't belong in this wing, in this world, in his territory. I kept moving forward, counting doors. 5 to the study where the missing auction inventory was supposedly stored. Then I could grab the paperwork, confirm my father's ring was still listed as lot number 47, and slip back into the safe, bright world of champagne flutes and polite applause. 5 doors. I could manage that. Before continuing the story, please consider giving this video a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more stories to you. You're lost, little ghost. The voice stopped my heart before it stopped my feet. My breath caught, sharp and painful. That deep timbre with its Mediterranean edges, turning my bones to ice and fire at once. I turned slowly, knowing before I saw him that every choice I'd made tonight had led to this moment. Every wrong turn, every door I shouldn't have opened, every desperate hope that I could reclaim what my father lost without anyone noticing. Cupido Davide stood at the end of the hallway, backlit by amber light from an open doorway. The image before me matched every whispered warning I'd heard, the sharp cut of his suit that looked like it cost more than my yearly rent, the dark hair swept back from a face too handsome to belong to someone they called Heartless, the tattoo that crept just above his collar like a brand of the underworld he ruled. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Dark, assessing, and something else I couldn't name. Something that made me feel both seen and hunted in the same breath. The auction coordinator. His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. In a wing where no auction has ever been held. He took a step forward, and I took one back, my spine hitting the wall behind me. Now why would a girl who counts champagne glasses need to be in my private study? My mouth opened, but no sound came out. The practiced lie I'd prepared dissolved on my tongue. He moved closer, and I could smell expensive cologne mixed with cigar smoke, could see the way the hallway light caught the dangerous edge of his jaw. You're shaking. It wasn't a question. It was an observation, clinical and curious, like I was something unexpected in his perfectly ordered world. My voice cracked, pathetically small in the heavy silence. I was told the inventory liar. The word was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. He reached out, and I flinched hard enough that my clipboard clattered to the floor, papers scattering like white flags of surrender. His hand froze midair. For 3 heartbeats, we both stared at that suspended hand, at the small space between his reaching fingers and my terrified face. The silence stretched, fragile and strange, broken only by my too fast breathing. Something shifted in his expression. His eyes dropped to the scattered papers at our feet, to the highlighted entry on the top page, lot number 47, vintage sapphire ring, Nichols estate. When his gaze returned to mine, it held a dark kind of understanding. He said quietly, and the sound held both danger and something I couldn't name. Not a thief. Something much more foolish. His voice dropped lower, intimate, and terrible. A girl trying to steal back her own history. He bent down slowly, never breaking eye contact, and picked up the paper with my father's ring circled in desperate blue ink. Please. The word escaped before I could stop it, raw and broken. It's all I have left of him. Cupido straightened, and I watched emotions flicker across his face too quickly to read. Then his expression settled into something harder, more familiar. The Heartless Don they whispered about in the East Wing. Then we should discuss the cost of such sentimentality, he said, gesturing toward the open doorway behind him. In my study, where you were so eager to go uninvited. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even really a threat. It was an execution, dressed in perfect Italian syllables. And I had no choice but to follow him into the dark. The study was everything the hallway had promised: dark wood, leather-bound books that probably cost more than my car, and a massive desk that looked like it had witnessed confessions and executions in equal measure. The door clicked shut behind us with a finality that made my stomach clench. Cupido moved past me with the fluid grace of a predator, circling behind his desk before turning to face me. The amber light from a Tiffany lamp cast shadows across his features, making him look like something carved from marble and malice. Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. I remained standing, my legs locked in place. Sitting felt like surrender, and I'd surrendered enough just by walking through that door. His eyebrow lifted slightly. No, there was curiosity in his voice, like I was a puzzle piece that didn't fit the picture he'd already assembled. You begged me for mercy in the hallway, but now you defy a simple request? I don't want to be here, I whispered. And yet here you are. He set the paper with my father's ring notation on the desk between us, smoothing it with one elegant hand. In my private wing. Looking for something that belongs to me. It doesn't belong to you. The words came out stronger than I felt. That ring was my father's. My grandmother's before that. It's been in my family for 3 generations. And now it's lot 47 in an auction that will fund a very important expansion of my operations. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those dark, unreadable eyes. Your family sold it to pay debts. Legal debts, I might add. The transaction was clean. My father was dying. My voice cracked. The medical bills, he didn't know what he was signing. The dealer told him it was a loan using the ring as collateral, not an outright sale. Something flickered across Cupido's face. And you think breaking into my home will change the legal reality of ownership? I wasn't breaking in. I work here. You coordinate auctions in the ballroom. He stood, moving around the desk with that same liquid grace. This is not the ballroom, Doroth Nichols. Hearing my full name from his lips sent ice down my spine. How do you think I don't know every person who enters my estate? He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the exact shade of his eyes, not black like I'd thought, but a deep brown that caught gold in the lamplight. I know your name. Your address. The fact that you take the bus here because your car died 6 months ago and you can't afford to fix it. I know you eat the leftover canapés in the kitchen because you skip lunch to save money. My face burned with humiliation. Then you know I'm not a threat. I know you're desperate. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a painting he was considering purchasing. Desperate people do dangerous things. They make alliances with my enemies. They plant listening devices in studies exactly like this one. I'm not a spy. The words burst out louder than I intended, echoing off the walls. No. He took another step closer. I don't think you are. The agreement should have relieved me. Instead, the way he said it, soft, almost curious, made my pulse hammer harder. Then let me go. Please. I'll never come back to this wing. I'll finish tonight's auction and you'll never see me again. You're not leaving. His hand reached out, and I jerked backward so violently I stumbled into the bookshelf behind me. Books rattled on their shelves. His hand froze again, just like in the hallway, hovering in the space between us. And then I saw it, genuine confusion crossing his features. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something closer to bewilderment. You're terrified of me. It wasn't a question, but he said it like he was discovering something impossible. I couldn't say it. Couldn't name what he was out loud. A monster. His voice was almost gentle. Yes, I am. But you knew that before you walked into my territory tonight. He lowered his hand slowly, deliberately, like he was trying not to spook a wild animal. Women don't usually fear me this way. They know better than to show it, or they want something badly enough to pretend they're not afraid. His eyes moved over my face, cataloging every trembling muscle, every rapid breath. But you can't hide it at all, can you? I pressed harder against the bookshelf, wishing it would swallow me whole. How old are you? He asked suddenly. 26. 26. He repeated it like the number offended him. And no one has ever taught you how to hide what you feel? I'm not very good at lying. A sound escaped him, not quite a laugh, but close, dark and disbelieving. No, you're really not. He moved to the side, giving me a clear path to the door. Go. I blinked. What? Leave. Return to your auction. Finish your work. He walked back to his desk, sitting down heavily like I'd exhausted him. The ring will be removed from tonight's lots. Hope flared in my chest, painful and bright. You're giving it back? No. His eyes met mine again, and there was something in them I couldn't name. Something darker than anger, stranger than desire. But I'm not selling it either. Not yet. He picked up the paper, folding it precisely. Not until I understand what kind of fool walks into a wolf's den for a piece of jewelry. It's not just jewelry, I know. His voice cut through mine, sharp and final. Go, Doroth. Before I change my mind. I didn't wait for him to say it twice. I fled toward the door, my hands shaking so badly I nearly couldn't turn the handle. Miss Nichols. I froze, not turning around. You'll be back in the study. His voice was quiet, certain, and absolutely terrifying in its conviction. Not because I'll summon you. Because you'll need something from me again. And next time, I heard him stand, heard the whisper of expensive fabric as he moved. Next time, you won't be allowed to run. I yanked the door open and ran anyway, his words chasing me down the hallway like ghosts I'd never outrun. I made it through the rest of the auction on autopilot, smiling at donors, checking off winning bids, pretending my hands weren't still shaking. When the last guest departed at midnight, I grabbed my coat and practically ran for the service entrance. A man in a black suit stepped in front of me. Not security, I knew all the security guards. This man had dead eyes and a gun-shaped bulge under his jacket. Miss Nichols. Mr. Davide requests you remain on the premises tonight. The marble floor tilted under my feet. I need to go home. Mr. Davide insists. His smile didn't reach those dead eyes. For your protection, of course. There are security concerns that need to be addressed before you can leave the estate. Protection. The word tasted like a lie wrapped in silk. They put me in a room that could have housed my entire apartment twice over. Cream walls, a 4-poster bed with sheets that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and bars on the windows disguised as decorative ironwork. A gilded cage, exactly like the stories warned about. I didn't sleep. How could I, knowing he was somewhere in this massive house, probably watching me on cameras I couldn't see? Morning came with a knock and a woman in a crisp uniform carrying a breakfast tray. She set it on the table by the window without meeting my eyes. Mr. Davide will see you at 10 o'clock. Appropriate clothing has been provided. She gestured to the closet before leaving, the lock clicking softly behind her. The closet held 3 outfits, all in my exact size. A cold dress the color of wine, tailored slacks and a silk blouse. A sundress that looked innocent but probably cost a fortune. Everything fit perfectly, which meant he'd been watching me longer than I'd realized. I chose the slacks and blouse, armor disguised as professionalism. At precisely 10 o'clock, the same dead-eyed man escorted me downstairs. Not to the study, but to a sunlit terrace overlooking gardens that stretched toward the Mediterranean. Cupido sat at a wrought iron table, reading something on a tablet, an espresso cup at his elbow. In the morning light, dressed in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, he looked almost human. Until he glanced up and I saw those eyes again. Sit, Doroth. This time I sat. Defiance seemed stupid in daylight, with armed men stationed at every exit. You're keeping me prisoner. I kept my voice steady through sheer force of will. I'm keeping you safe. He set down the tablet. Last night, after you left my study, 2 men were caught attempting to access the estate's security footage. They wanted to know who I'd brought to my private wing. He took a sip of espresso, watching me over the rim. They were not my employees. My stomach dropped. I don't understand. Of course you don't. You think the world is auction catalogs and polite society. He leaned back in his chair. Let me educate you. I have enemies. Powerful enemies who watch everything I do, everyone I speak with, searching for weaknesses. You spent 30 minutes in my study last night. 30 minutes where I didn't emerge, didn't summon my guards, didn't have you removed by force." His jaw tightened. "That makes you interesting. And interesting people in my world become targets. Then let me leave. Let me disappear, too late." He gestured, and a staff member appeared with coffee for me, setting it down with the same silent efficiency as everyone else in this house. "They already have your face, your name. Letting you walk out now would be signing your death warrant. So I'm supposed to stay here? Forever? Until I neutralize the threat." He said it like he was discussing the weather. "It shouldn't take more than a few days. I have a life. A job. You have a job coordinating my auctions. Which you will continue to do, from here." He pulled out his phone, typed something. "Your landlord has been paid through the next 3 months. Your neighbors have been told you're on an extended work assignment. Your apartment is being monitored for any interested parties." The casual invasion of my entire existence stole my breath. "You can't just, I can." His eyes met mine, and there was nothing human in them now. "I own half this city, Doroth. The other half fears me enough to pretend I do. Your landlord, your neighbors, the bus driver you greet every morning, they all understand what it means when Cupido Davide takes an interest." He leaned forward. "The only person who doesn't seem to understand is you. I'm not yours to protect." "No." Something dark crossed his features. "But you're in my world now, whether you chose it or not. And I don't leave loose ends." A phone buzzed. One of the suited men approached, whispered something in Cupido's ear. His expression didn't change, but the air around him shifted, grew colder, sharper. "Excuse me." He stood, buttoning his cuff with precise movements. "Enjoy your breakfast. Paolo will escort you to the East Wing Library after. You'll find it comfortable for working." "What's happening?" He paused, studying me with that unnerving intensity. "Someone needs to be reminded of boundaries. Don't worry, it doesn't concern you." But 30 minutes later, standing at the library window, I heard the gunshots. 2 sharp cracks that made birds scatter from the garden trees. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tasting bile. When Cupido appeared in the library doorway an hour later, his white shirt was still pristine. Not a hair out of place. But I saw it in his eyes, the absolute absence of remorse. "You killed someone." My voice was barely a whisper. "I protected what's mine." He crossed to where I stood frozen by the window. "That's what monsters do, Doroth. We eliminate threats." He reached out slowly, giving me time to flinch away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers were cold. "The man who never freezes, they call me. Did you know that?" His hand lingered near my face. "I haven't hesitated over a decision in 15 years. I don't falter. I don't doubt." His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Until a girl with terrified eyes made me freeze twice in one night. He dropped his hand and walked away, leaving me trembling in the golden afternoon light of my beautiful prison. 3 days in the gilded cage taught me the boundaries of my prison. The library, the terrace, the gardens within sight of armed guards. My beautiful room with its locked door. Meals delivered with silent efficiency. And everywhere, the weight of being watched. On the 4th morning, I'd had enough. I found Cupido in what the staff called the morning room, signing documents while a nervous man in an expensive suit waited at attention. When Cupido's eyes lifted to find me in the doorway, the man visibly paled. "Out," Cupido said softly. The man fled, clutching his briefcase like a life preserver. "I didn't give you permission to wander the house, Doroth. I didn't ask for it." I stepped inside before my courage could fail. "We need to talk." "Do we?" He set down his pen with deliberate slowness. "About what?" "Your accommodations? I can have you moved to a smaller room if you prefer, about my freedom." I crossed to his desk, my hands fisted at my sides to stop their shaking. "And my father's ring." Interest flickered in his eyes. The negotiation begins." You said a few days." "It's been 4. "When can I leave?" "When I decide you can leave." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." He leaned back in his chair, studying me with that unnerving focus. "Unless you have something to offer in exchange?" My heart hammered. This was it, the moment I'd rehearsed all night, lying awake in sheets that cost more than my entire wardrobe. "The ring. Give me my father's ring and I'll stay." "Willingly. However long you think is necessary." His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. You'd trade your freedom for a piece of jewelry? It's not jewelry. It's the last piece of my father I have left. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. Everything else is gone. The house, his books, even his watch, all sold to pay the medical bills. That ring is all that remains of who he was, who we were before I stopped, swallowing hard. Before he got sick and our world fell apart. Cupido was quiet for a long moment, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. And you think staying here willingly is worth that? You're going to keep me here anyway. At least this way, I get something I actually want. Interesting. He stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace. You're learning to negotiate. That's good. But your offer is worthless. The words hit like a slap. What? You're already staying, as you so astutely observed. Why would I give you something valuable in exchange for what I already have? He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Try again, little ghost. What else can you offer me? I don't have anything else. You know that. You know everything about me, where I live, what I eat, that my car is dead in my landlord's garage. Humiliation burned in my chest. I have nothing you could possibly want. Wrong. The word was soft, almost gentle, which made it terrifying. You have something I haven't been able to stop thinking about for 4 days. My breath caught. I don't understand. That scream. His hand lifted, hovering near my face without touching. That moment in the hallway when you flinched from me like I was death itself. The way you can't hide your fear, can't hide anything at all. His jaw tightened. I'm a man who has seen and done things that would make you scream again, Doroth. I haven't felt anything resembling a human emotion in longer than I can remember. Everything is a transaction. Everyone wants something. His eyes bore into mine. And then you appear, shaking and desperate, and for 3 seconds I froze. I, the man who never hesitates, couldn't move because a girl with terrified eyes looked at me like I was capable of mercy. The room was too small, the air too thick. I still don't understand what you want from me. Neither do I. The admission seemed to cost him something. That's the problem. That's why you're still here. He lowered his hand, stepping back to give me space I hadn't realized I desperately needed. So here's my counteroffer. Stay. Not as a prisoner, but as a guest. Help me understand why you, of all people, made me feel human again. And when I figure it out, when I can look at you without feeling like something inside me has cracked open, you'll get your ring and your freedom. And if you never figure it out? A ghost of a smile touched his lips, sharp and humorless. Then I suppose you'll live here forever. Learn to enjoy the gardens, Doroth. They're quite beautiful in spring. That's not a negotiation. That's extortion. No. He returned to his desk, picking up his pen like the conversation was over. Extortion implies I want something specific. I don't even know what I'm searching for. But until I find it, his eyes lifted, pinning me in place. You're mine. The words hung between us, both promise and threat. I should have argued. Should have fought. But something in his voice, that thread of genuine confusion beneath the cold command, made me pause. The feared Mafia Don, the man who never froze, was just as trapped in this as I was. Fine, I heard myself say. But I want something in return. Right now. His eyebrow lifted. Bold. What do you want? I want to see it. My father's ring. I want proof you still have it, that this isn't just another manipulation. He studied me for a long moment, then reached into his desk drawer. When his hand emerged, a small velvet box sat in his palm. He opened it, and there it was, my grandmother's sapphire ring, the blue stone catching the morning light exactly as I remembered. My eyes burned. You can hold it, he said quietly. But not keep it. Not yet. I crossed to the desk, picking up the box with trembling fingers. The ring was warm from being in his drawer, and I wondered if he'd kept it close deliberately, if this was all part of some calculated game. One more thing, I whispered, unable to look away from the sapphire. If I'm staying willingly, I want my door unlocked at night. No more being locked in like a prisoner. Done. The immediate agreement surprised me. Anything else? Why are you agreeing so easily? His smile was dark, knowing. Because you'll learn soon enough that an unlocked door means nothing when there's nowhere to run. He was right, and we both knew it. But still, when I returned to my room that evening, the door opened freely beneath my hand. It was the smallest freedom. And somehow, it felt like the most dangerous. Could you choose to stay in a gilded cage if it meant holding onto the last piece of someone you loved? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. The dress arrived on the morning of the 7th day, draped across my bed like a declaration of war. Deep emerald silk that shimmered when I touched it, with a neckline that would bare my shoulders and a slit that climbed too high up the thigh. A note lay beside it in bold, masculine handwriting. Wear this tonight. We have an engagement. See, I found him in the garden, reviewing something on his phone while his guards maintained their invisible perimeter. I'm not going anywhere in that dress. He didn't look up. Yes, you are. I'm not some doll you can dress up, you're right. He pocketed his phone, finally meeting my eyes. You're a ghost who's been invisible her entire life. Tonight, I'm making you seen. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Something in his voice made me obey before I could think better of it. You want to survive in my world? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his intensity laser-focused on me. Then you need to learn its rules. First lesson, perception is power. Right now, my enemies think you're a weakness. A frightened girl I've tucked away who makes me hesitate. His jaw tightened. They're planning how to use you against me. I can see it in their movements, hear it in their careful questions. Then let me go now. The word was absolute. Because running would prove them right. Instead, you're going to walk into the Castellano charity gala tonight on my arm, wearing that dress, and show them exactly how wrong they are. My stomach dropped. The Castellano gala? That's the biggest event of the season. Every major family in the region will be there. Exactly. A dangerous smile curved his lips. Every rival, every enemy, every person who thinks they can exploit my supposed vulnerability. They'll all see you. Standing beside me. Unafraid. But I am afraid. I know. He reached across the space between us, his hand hovering near mine. Waiting. That's why this is a lesson, not a test. Tonight, I'm going to teach you how to wear fear like armor instead of letting it wear you. Something in his voice, that thread of almost gentleness, made me place my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and surprisingly careful. Trust me for one night, Doroth. Let me show you what it feels like to be powerful. The stylist who arrived that evening transformed me into someone I didn't recognize. My hair swept up to expose my neck, my face subtly painted to emphasize eyes that suddenly looked bold instead of frightened. And the dress, it fit like it had been made for me, because it probably had been. When I descended the stairs, Cupido was waiting in the foyer, devastating in a black tuxedo that made him look like sin personified. His eyes traveled over me slowly, something dark and appreciative flickering in their depths. Perfect, he murmured. Now, the rules. You stay within arm's reach at all times. You speak when spoken to, but you don't apologize, don't diminish yourself. If someone tries to intimidate you, you look at me. I'll handle it. He offered his arm. And Doroth? Smile like you have a secret. Because you do, you have me, and that's the most dangerous secret in the room. The gala was everything I'd imagined and worse. A centuries-old palazzo dripping with crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing like water, and everywhere, the predators in designer gowns and tailored suits. I felt their eyes lock onto us the moment we entered. Cupido. A silver-haired man materialized from the crowd, his smile sharp enough to cut. How unexpected to see you here. And with such lovely company. Castellano. Cupido's hand settled on the small of my back, possessive and warm. May I introduce Doroth Nichols? Enchanting. Castellano's eyes crawled over me like insects. I wasn't aware you were seeing anyone seriously. There are many things you're not aware of. Cupido's voice was silk over steel. I prefer it that way. As Castellano moved away, I felt Cupido lean closer, his breath warm against my ear. Well done. You didn't flinch. I wanted to. I know. But you didn't. His hand pressed gently against my back. That's the lesson. Feeling fear and showing fear are different things. You're learning. The night became a gauntlet of veiled threats and calculating stares. Women in diamonds who looked at me like I was an insect that had wandered into their web. Men who spoke to Cupido while undressing me with their eyes. And through it all, his hand remained steady on my back, his presence a dark shield I hated needing. Your little pet is quite charming, Davide. A woman in red silk appeared, her smile venomous. Does she do tricks? I felt Cupido tense beside me, felt the air grow sharp with impending violence. And something in me, some part that had been silent my whole life, finally spoke. Only one trick, I heard myself say, meeting her eyes steadily. I make powerful men forget how to breathe. It's quite effective. The woman's smile faltered. Around us, the conversation paused. Cupido's hand flexed against my back, and when I glanced up, his eyes held something that might have been pride. If you'll excuse us, he said smoothly, guiding me away. I need a moment with my date. He led me to a balcony overlooking the city, the sounds of the party muted behind glass doors. Where did that come from? His voice held a mixture of surprise and dark amusement. I don't know. My hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She made me so angry, talking about me like I wasn't even there, so you bit back. He turned me to face him, his hands on my shoulders. That's power, Doroth. That moment when you stop apologizing for taking up space and start claiming it instead. His thumb brushed along my collarbone, sending shivers down my spine. You were magnificent. I was terrified. I know. His eyes held mine, intense and searching. But you were magnificent anyway. That's the difference between a victim and a queen. Before I could respond, the balcony door burst open. One of Cupido's guards, his face tight with urgency. Boss, we have a situation. The Morettas are moving on the south corridor. They're asking for the girl. Every muscle in Cupido's body went rigid. When he looked at me, his eyes had gone cold and lethal. Stay behind me. Whatever happens, don't leave my sight. We returned to the ballroom to find 3 men in dark suits blocking the exit, their hands conspicuously inside their jackets. The crowd had gone silent, everyone suddenly finding reasons to examine their champagne. Davide. The center man smiled, showing too many teeth. We'd like a word. Privately. About your new acquisition. Doroth isn't an acquisition. Cupido's voice dropped to something sub-zero. She's mine. And you're about to learn why that distinction matters. His hand found mine, squeezing once, a warning or a promise, I couldn't tell which. The lesson, I realized, was just beginning. The confrontation at the gala ended without bloodshed, but only barely. Cupido had done something with his eyes, something dark and absolute, that made the Moretti men retreat like dogs remembering their master's whip. On the drive home, his silence was heavier than any words could have been. I found him 2 nights later in the estate's chapel, a small stone building I hadn't known existed until I'd gotten lost searching for the library's 2nd floor. He sat in the front pew, staring at a stained glass window that caught moonlight and threw colored shadows across his face. You shouldn't be here, he said without turning around. My door was unlocked. You said I could move freely. I meant within reason. But he didn't order me to leave. I slid into the pew beside him, maintaining a careful distance. Who is she? His jaw tightened. Who? The woman in the window. You've been staring at her for 20 minutes. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my sister. Valentina. The name came out rough, like gravel over wounds that hadn't healed. She died 15 years ago. 19 years old, engaged to be married, the only good thing in my family's legacy. His hands fisted on his knees. They took her to get to my father. Held her for 3 days while he tried to negotiate. When we finally found her, he stopped, and I saw his throat work. She was still alive. Barely. She died in my arms, begging me to make them pay. The rawness in his voice made my chest ache. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be educated. He finally turned to look at me, and his eyes were empty in a way that terrified me more than his anger ever had. That's when I learned the most important lesson in this world. Hesitation kills the people you love. My father hesitated. Tried to find a peaceful solution. Wasted 3 days negotiating while they tortured her. His voice went flat, mechanical. I didn't make the same mistake. I found every man involved. All 12 of them. And I made sure they understood exactly what they'd taken from me before I ended them. That's when you became the Heartless Don. That's when I stopped being anything resembling human. He stood, moving to the window, his silhouette dark against the colored glass. I haven't frozen, haven't hesitated, haven't felt anything but cold calculation for 15 years. Until you. The words hung between us like a confession he hadn't meant to make. Why? I whispered. Why me? I don't know. He pressed his palm against the glass, against his sister's face rendered in blue and gold. You remind me of her, maybe. That look in your eyes, like you still believe the world can be good if you just try hard enough. He laughed, bitter and sharp. Valentina believed that too. Right up until they proved her wrong. I should have stayed silent. Should have let him have this moment with his grief. But something in his voice, that thread of loss that mirrored my own, made me speak. My father believed that too. Even at the end. I moved to stand beside him, studying the saint's face in the glass. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They gave him 6 months. He lasted 8, and every single day he told me it would be okay. That we'd find a way. My voice cracked. We didn't find a way. We just found more bills. More debt. More things to sell until there was nothing left but that ring. Cupido turned to look at me, really look at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. I worked 3 jobs, I continued, the words spilling out like water through a broken dam. Mornings at a bakery, afternoons coordinating events, nights cleaning offices. I'd sleep 4 hours, wake up, do it again. For 8 months, I barely saw daylight. Barely ate. My friends stopped calling because I never had time. My landlord threatened to evict me twice. I wiped at my eyes, angry at the tears that wouldn't stop. And it still wasn't enough. He died owing $80,000. The debt collectors came before we'd even held the funeral. That's when they took the ring. That's when they took everything. I laughed, but it came out broken. The lawyer told me my father had signed papers thinking it was a collateral loan. He was on so much pain medication by then, he didn't understand what he was agreeing to. I tried to fight it, but I had no money for lawyers, no proof he wasn't competent. So they took it all. The house, his books, his watch, even his wedding ring from my mother. She died when I was 12, everything. I finally met his eyes. That sapphire ring was my grandmother's. 3 generations of women wore it. It was supposed to be mine someday. And I let them take it because I was too weak, too tired, too broke to fight back. That's why you came to my study. Understanding colored his voice. Not just sentiment. Survival. You couldn't let it be the one thing you didn't fight for. I had to try. Even if I failed, I had to try. I smiled through my tears. Turns out I did fail. Just in a more complicated way than I expected. He reached out slowly, giving me time to flinch away, and wiped a tear from my cheek with his thumb. You didn't fail. You're still fighting. That's more than most people do. Is it fighting when I'm trapped here? You're not trapped. His hand cupped my face, gentle in a way that seemed impossible for someone called Heartless. You're learning. Learning that the world takes from people like us, people who love too much, trust too easily, believe things can be good. But the difference between being a victim and being a survivor, his eyes held mine, intense and searching, is deciding what you'll do when the world comes to take again. What did you do? I made sure the world learned to fear me more than I feared it. His thumb traced along my jaw. But you're finding a different way. A way that doesn't require becoming a monster. What if I can't? What if your world breaks me the way it broke you? Something flickered in his eyes, pain, hope, something I couldn't name. Then I'll be there to catch you, because that's what you did for me in that hallway, even if you don't realize it. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. You reminded me what it felt like to be human. To freeze because something mattered more than winning. Cupido, don't. He dropped his hand, stepping back like I'd burned him. Don't make this more than it is. You're here because I'm trying to understand something I don't understand. That's all. But the way he looked at me, like I was both salvation and destruction, told me it was so much more than that. I left him in the chapel with his sister's ghost, but I felt his eyes on me all the way down the corridor. And for the first time since I'd been taken to this estate, I wondered if maybe we were both prisoners here. Just caged by different things. When does protecting someone become imprisoning them, and who really hold the key? What do you think happens next? Drop your theories below. The gunfire started at 2 a.m., shattering the Mediterranean silence like broken glass. I jolted awake, heart hammering, as 3 sharp cracks echoed through the estate. Then voices shouting in Italian, rapid and urgent. Running footsteps in the corridor outside my room. More shots, closer this time. My door flew open and Paolo appeared, the dead-eyed guard who'd first detained me. "Miss Nichols, come with me." "Now. What's happening now?" He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the hallway. I was barefoot, wearing only the silk nightgown that had appeared in my closet, but there was no time to think about that. Paolo's gun was drawn, his eyes scanning every corner as we moved. We made it 3 doors down before the window exploded inward in a shower of glass. Paolo shoved me against the wall, his body covering mine as bullets tore through the space where we'd been standing. The sound was deafening, impossibly loud, nothing like movies had prepared me for. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only press myself into the wall and pray. "Stay down," Paolo growled, returning fire through the shattered window. "Don't move, don't scream, don't." He jerked backward, a red flower blooming on his shoulder. His gun clattered to the floor. I screamed then, couldn't help it, the sound ripping from my throat as Paolo crumpled. Through the broken window, I saw ropes. Men in black tactical gear rappelling down from the roof. 3 of them, maybe 4, moving with military precision. One locked eyes with me through the window and smiled. I ran. Barefoot on glass and marble, my nightgown streaming behind me, I ran blindly through corridors I barely knew. Behind me, boots pounded. Voices shouted commands. The entire estate had become a war zone, and I was unarmed, unprotected, utterly exposed. A hand grabbed my hair from behind, yanking me backward so hard I saw stars. I hit the ground, tasting blood, and looked up into the face of a man who smiled like death. "There you are, Principessa. The boss will be so pleased." The gunshot was so close I felt the heat of it. The man's head snapped back, and he crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Blood splattered across my nightgown, hot and horrifying. Cupido stood at the end of the hallway, gun raised, and he was nothing like the man I'd seen in the chapel. This was something primal, something ancient and terrible. His white shirt was torn and blood-speckled. His eyes were black holes that had swallowed everything human. "Close your eyes, Doroth." His voice was Arctic calm, the voice of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. "Don't watch what happens next." I couldn't close my eyes. Couldn't move. Could only watch as 2 more men rounded the corner behind him, weapons raised. Cupido moved like violence made flesh. He shot the first man without even looking, some 6th sense guiding his aim. The second man got a shot off. I saw the muzzle flash, heard the crack, but Cupido had already twisted aside. His return fire was surgical, precise, ending the threat before I could draw breath to scream. Then he was moving toward me, holstering his gun, his hands reaching for me even as more gunfire erupted from somewhere deeper in the house. "Are you hurt?" His hands moved over me rapidly, checking for injuries, and they were shaking. The only part of him that seemed human in this moment was the tremor in his fingers. "Doroth, answer me. Are you hurt?" "No. I don't think so." My voice broke as I looked at the bodies, at the blood spreading across marble, at the reality of his world laid bare. "Oh God. You killed them. You just, yes." He pulled me to my feet, tucking me against his side as he moved us down the corridor. "And I'll kill 100 more before I let them touch you. Move. Stay with me. Don't look at anything but where we're going." He led me to a section of wall that looked like every other section of wall, pressed something hidden in the molding, and a door swung open. A panic room, all steel and reinforced walls. He pushed me inside, but when I turned, he wasn't following. "Wait here. Lock it from inside. The code is 0407, Valentina's birthday. Don't open it for anyone but me." "Where are you going?" "To end this." His eyes met mine, and they were still that terrible void. "They came into my home. Put their hands on what's mine. There's only one response to that." "Cupido," I grabbed his arm, feeling the coiled violence in his muscles. "Don't go. Please. Just stay here with me. Let your guards, my guards are dying protecting you." The words were harsh, raw. Paolo took a bullet for you. 3 others are dead holding the east corridor. This ends when I end it. When they understand that touching you means death for everyone they love. He tried to pull away, but my fingers tightened on his arm. I don't want you to die for me. Something shifted in his face, surprise, maybe, or something softer that he quickly buried. I've been dead for 15 years, Doroth. You're the first thing that's made me remember what it felt like to be alive. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. So I'm going to make sure you stay that way. Even if it means becoming the monster you saw tonight. You're not a monster. Yes, I am. He pressed his forehead to mine, just for a second, his breath shaky. But I'm your monster now. And monsters protect what they love. Before I could process those last words, he was gone, the door sealing shut behind him with a hydraulic hiss. I punched in the code with trembling fingers, hearing the locks engage. Then I sank to the floor and waited, hugging my knees while the sounds of war raged outside. More gunshots. Screams. The crash of breaking furniture. And through it all, I kept seeing Cupido's eyes, that empty, terrible darkness that somehow held me at its center. 20 minutes passed. Or maybe 20 hours. Time lost meaning in that steel box. Finally, the intercom crackled. Doroth. It's over. Open the door. His voice was tired now, human again, and I could hear the exhaustion in every syllable. I opened the door to find him leaning against the wall, blood on his hands and splattered across his face. His white shirt was mostly red now. Are you hurt? I moved toward him, checking for wounds. None of it's mine. He caught my hands, stilling their frantic movement. It's over. They're all dead. Every single one. His eyes searched mine, looking for something fear, maybe, or revulsion. Are you going to run now? Now that you've seen what I really am? I looked at the blood, at the bodies I could see sprawled in the corridor beyond, at the man who'd become death itself to keep me safe. I should have been terrified. Should have run as far and fast as my feet could carry me. Instead, I stepped into his arms and held on tight. No, I whispered against his chest, feeling his heart pound beneath layers of violence and silk. I'm not running. His arms came around me like iron bands, crushing me against him, and I felt him shake with something that might have been relief or might have been the adrenaline finally leaving his system. You should, he said into my hair, his voice broken. You should run and never look back. But we both knew I wouldn't. Couldn't. Because somewhere between the study and the chapel and this moment of blood and protection, I'd stopped being his prisoner. And started being something far more dangerous. The velvet box appeared on my breakfast tray 3 days after the attack, sitting beside the coffee like an accusation. I knew what was inside before I opened it. My grandmother's sapphire ring caught the morning light, the blue stone exactly as brilliant as I remembered. A note lay beneath it. Come to the study when you're ready. See, I found him standing at the window, his back to me, shoulders rigid with tension. The estate had been scrubbed clean of all evidence of violence, but the memory of blood on marble lingered like a ghost neither of us could exorcise. You're giving it back. I held the box in my palm, feeling its weight, the weight of everything I'd fought for, everything I'd thought I wanted. Yes. He didn't turn around. Along with your freedom. A car is waiting. It will take you anywhere you want to go. Your apartment has been cleaned and restocked. 3 months' rent paid, as promised. There's also a bank account in your name, enough to start over somewhere far from here, if that's what you choose. The flatness in his voice made my chest ache. Why no? Because I was wrong. He finally turned, and his face was the cold mask I'd first seen in the hallway, the Heartless Don with nothing human behind his eyes. I thought I could keep you safe. That I could protect you from my world while keeping you in it. 3 nights ago proved how delusional that was. His jaw tightened. You could have died, Doroth. You should have died. If Paolo hadn't been there, if I'd been 30 seconds slower, but you weren't. This time. The words were sharp, cutting. But there will be a next time. And a time after that. Because that's what my world is, an endless cycle of violence and retaliation. People trying to hurt me by taking what he stopped, his control fracturing for just a moment. Taking what matters to me. So you're sending me away. I'm setting you free. There's a difference. He moved to his desk, picking up an envelope. Everything you need is in here. New identity documents if you want them. Contacts for jobs in other cities. Money. Freedom. He set it down between us. Take your ring, take your life back, and forget you ever walked into this estate. I stared at the envelope, at the ring, at everything I'd thought I wanted for the past 3 weeks. And what if I don't want to forget? His expression cracked, something raw and desperate breaking through. Don't do this. Don't do what? Don't tell you the truth. I moved closer, and he took a step back like I was dangerous. You think sending me away protects me? You think I'll be safer out there, alone, where your enemies can find me without your guards, without your protection? They'll lose interest once you leave. You'll just be another girl I discarded. You don't believe that. I cut him off, angry now, the fear and confusion of the past weeks crystallizing into clarity. They saw how you looked at me at the gala. They came here for me specifically because they know I'm not just another girl. So sending me away doesn't protect me. It just means I'll be alone when they come again. He flinched like I'd struck him. Then I'll have guards watching you. From a distance. You'll never see them, but I don't want distance. The words came out stronger than I felt. I want the choice you're too afraid to offer me. What choice? His voice was hoarse. To stay in a world that will try to kill you? To watch me become the monster you saw 3 nights ago, over and over until it's all I am? To live in fear and blood, and to live somewhere I'm actually seen? The words burst out of me, years of invisibility cracking open. Do you know what my life was before this? Before you? I was a ghost, Cupido. 3 jobs, no friends, no future. I existed in the margins of other people's parties, other people's lives. I was so invisible that when I disappeared, no one even noticed except my landlord wondering about rent. That's not true, it is true. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. And then I walked into your hallway, terrified and desperate, and for the first time in years, maybe ever, someone actually saw me. Not as a convenience. Not as cheap labor. Not as something to pity or overlook. You saw me. My voice broke. Even when you were angry, even when you were dangerous, you saw me like I mattered. Like I was worth freezing for. He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders. You matter so much it terrifies me. Don't you understand? That's why you have to go. Because if something happens to you, if I fail to protect you the way I failed Valentina, I'm not Valentina. I grabbed his wrists, holding on. And you're not the same man who lost her. You said it yourself, you haven't hesitated in 15 years. But you hesitated for me. You froze for me. Not because I make you weak, but because I remind you that you're still human underneath all that armor. Human gets people killed in my world. And invisible gets people erased in mine. I looked up at him, at the conflict warring in his dark eyes. That safe world you want to send me back to? It's not safe. It's just empty. Empty apartments and empty days, and a whole life that would pass without anyone noticing I'd lived it. My hands tightened on his wrists. At least here, in your dangerous world, I know I'm alive. I can feel it, in the fear, in the adrenaline, in the way you look at me like I'm worth protecting even when it costs you. Doroth, my name was a plea, a prayer, a warning, all at once. I'm not asking you to make me a responsibility, I said quietly. I'm asking you to let me make my own choice. And I choose to stay. I choose this. I stopped, the words catching in my throat because they were too big, too dangerous, too true. Choose what? His voice was barely a whisper, his eyes searching mine desperately. You. The word hung between us, fragile and terrifying. I choose you, Cupido. Even with the blood. Even with the danger. Even knowing what you are and what staying here means. I released his wrists, taking the ring from the box and slipping it onto my finger where it belonged. I'm taking the ring. But I'm not taking the freedom. Because the only place I've ever felt free was here. With you. He stared at me like I'd reached into his chest and restarted a heart that had stopped beating 15 years ago. You don't know what you're saying. I do. I touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. I'm saying I'd rather live dangerously with you than safely without you. I'm saying that your world might be dark, but at least it's real. And I'm saying I took a breath, gathering my courage. I'm saying I'm not afraid of the monster anymore. I'm only afraid of losing the man who taught me I was worth protecting. His control shattered. He pulled me against him, his arms crushing me close, his face buried in my hair. "You're insane," he whispered. "Absolutely insane." "Maybe." I held him just as tightly. "But I'm staying anyway." "On your terms," he said after a long moment, pulling back to look at me. "If you stay, it's because you choose to. Not because I'm keeping you. Not because you're trapped. You can leave any time and I won't stop you." "I know." I smiled through the tears I'd finally let fall. "That's why I'm staying." He kissed me then, desperate and careful all at once, like I was both salvation and destruction, and he couldn't decide which terrified him more. And somewhere in that kiss, in the meeting of two broken people who'd somehow found their way to each other through blood and fear and impossible choices, I felt something shift. The ring on my finger wasn't just my grandmother's anymore. It was a promise. A choice. A beginning. And for the first time since my father died, I felt like I was finally home. The market in the old quarter was Cupido's idea, a test, he'd called it, though his eyes had been soft when he said it. 2 weeks after I'd chosen to stay, he wanted to see if I could exist in his world beyond the estate's walls. Paolo and 2 other guards shadowed us at a distance, invisible to anyone who didn't know what to look for. I was examining handmade ceramics at a vendor's stall, Cupido's hand warm on my lower back, when I felt it, that prickling awareness of being watched. Not by our guards. By something else. Something wrong. "Cupido." I kept my voice low, remembering his lessons. 3 o'clock. "The man in the gray jacket has been following us for 10 minutes. His hand tightened on my back, pride and concern warring in his expression. "Good. You're learning." He turned slightly, his eyes finding the threat. "Paolo's already seen him. We're going to move toward the car. Stay close." We made it halfway across the square before everything went wrong. The explosion wasn't large, just enough to create chaos. Smoke and screams and people running in every direction. In the confusion, hands grabbed me from behind, yanking me backward into an alley. A cloth pressed over my mouth and nose, chemical sweet and suffocating. "Don't fight it, Principessa. The boss wants you alive. For now." I bit down hard on the hand covering my mouth, tasting blood. The man cursed, his grip loosening just enough. I remembered what Cupido had taught me during those quiet evenings in the garden, not elaborate fighting techniques, but practical survival. Go for the eyes. The throat. The groin. Anything to create distance. My elbow drove back into his solar plexus. He grunted, and I twisted away, stumbling deeper into the alley because forward meant people and witnesses and safety they wouldn't risk. But 3 more men blocked the alley's mouth, and I realized with cold clarity that I was trapped. "Feisty." The leader smiled, pulling a knife. Davide always did like them with spirit. Makes it more fun when they break. The old Doroth would have frozen. Would have screamed and begged and waited for rescue. But that girl had died somewhere between the study and the chapel and the choice to stay in a monster's world. I grabbed the ceramic vase I'd been holding. I hadn't even realized I was still clutching it and threw it at the nearest man's face. It shattered against his temple, and he went down hard. "You bitch." I ran deeper into the alley, my heart hammering but my mind clear. There, a fire escape, low enough to reach if I jumped. I grabbed the lowest rung, hauling myself up with strength born of desperation. Behind me, boots pounded on cobblestones. A hand closed around my ankle, yanking. I kicked backward, felt my heel connect with something that crunched. Kept climbing. 1 rung. 2. 3. The knife bit into my calf, white-hot pain that made me gasp. But I didn't scream. Wouldn't scream. Because screaming meant helpless, meant victim, meant the girl who'd flinched from everything. Instead, I kicked again, harder, and felt the hand release. I scrambled onto the first landing, putting iron bars between me and the men below. "You can't stay up there forever," the leader called, his face bloody from where my vase had connected. "And when you come down, we're going to make you regret every second of this before we deliver you to Moretti." "Moretti's dead." I pressed my hand against the bleeding wound on my calf, my voice steadier than I felt. "Cupido killed him 3 weeks ago. So whoever you're working for is either stupid or suicidal." Big words for a cornered girl. Big words from someone who needed 4 men to catch one unarmed woman. I met his eyes through the ironwork. And I still got away. His expression darkened. Not for long. That's when I heard it, the sound that made the men below go rigid with fear. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing off alley walls. And that voice, cold as winter death. Where is she? Cupido appeared at the alley's mouth, and he was the nightmare version again, the monster who'd killed 12 men for his sister, who'd painted his estate red to protect me. Paolo flanked him on one side, another guard on the other, all of them armed. But Cupido didn't need the gun in his hand to be terrifying. He just needed those eyes, black holes that promised suffering beyond imagination. Davide. The leader tried to sound confident and failed. I asked where she is. His voice never rose above conversational, which somehow made it worse. And if your next words aren't her exact location, I'm going to start removing pieces of you until someone else decides to be helpful. Up here. My voice cut through the tension. I'm okay. His eyes snapped up to find me on the fire escape, took in the blood on my leg, the torn dress, the ceramic shards still scattered at the men's feet. Something shifted in his expression, rage and relief and fierce pride all at once. Did they touch you? The question was directed at me, but his eyes never left the men below. They tried. I smiled, feeling savage and alive. I broke one's nose. Bit another. Stabbed this one with my heel. I gestured to the leader. I'm learning. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. It was too dark, too proud, too lethal to be anything human. Yes, you are. Then, to the men, you made 2 mistakes today. The first was touching what's mine. And the second? The leader asked, though he already knew. Assuming she needed me to save her. Cupido's gun came up, steady and sure. She held you off just fine on her own. I'm just here to clean up. What happened next was quick and brutal and exactly what they'd earned. I didn't look away. Didn't close my eyes or cover my ears. I'd chosen this world, chosen this man, and that meant accepting all of it, the protection and the violence, the safety and the blood. When it was over, Cupido climbed the fire escape to me with surprising grace, his hands gentle as they examined my wounded leg. We need to get this cleaned and stitched. I know. I touched his face, making him look at me. I didn't scream. No. His eyes held mine, intense and searching and full of something that looked like wonder. You didn't scream. You fought. You survived. His hand covered mine against his cheek. You're not the girl I found in my hallway anymore. No. I leaned in, kissing him despite the blood and smoke and chaos. I'm the woman who chose to stay with a monster. And learned to become a little monstrous herself. He lifted me carefully, cradling me against his chest as he descended the fire escape. Not monstrous, he murmured against my hair. Magnificent. There's a difference. As Paolo drove us back to the estate, Cupido's hands never stopped touching me, checking my pulse, stroking my hair, holding me like I was something precious he'd almost lost. And I realized that we'd both been transformed by that frozen moment in his study all those weeks ago. He'd learned to hesitate, to feel, to fear losing something more than he feared showing weakness. And I'd learned to fight, to claim space, to stand beside a monster and discover I had teeth of my own. We weren't the same people who'd met in that hallway. We were something new, something forged in blood and choice and impossible love. And God help anyone who tried to take us apart now. At what point does survival become strength, and when does loving a monster make you one too? Drop your thoughts below. This story isn't over yet. The Foundation's grand opening was everything I'd envisioned and nothing I'd expected. The converted palazzo in the city's heart, funded entirely by Davide money, legitimized through channels I'd learned not to ask too many questions about, gleamed with fresh paint and purpose. A banner across the entrance read, Nichols Legacy Foundation, honoring memory through action. My father would have loved it. Or been horrified. Possibly both. You're nervous. Cupido's hand found the small of my back, warm and steady through the silk of my dress. Deep blue tonight, the color of my grandmother's sapphire. The color of the ring that now shared my finger with a band of white gold and diamonds, his ring, given 3 months ago on a moonlit terrace while the Mediterranean whispered its approval. I'm terrified, I admitted, watching the crowd file in. Donors, politicians, people whose wealth could feed entire countries. What if they see through me? See that I'm just a girl who used to clean offices and eat leftover canapes. Then they're blind. He turned me to face him, his dark eyes intense. You built this in 6 months. Turned blood money into something that will actually help people. You negotiated with city officials who've been in my pocket for years and somehow made them believe it was their idea. Pride colored his voice. You're not that girl anymore, Doroth. You haven't been for a long time. Mrs. Davide. A woman in pearls approached, her smile calculated. What a lovely event. Tell me, how does it feel to be married to the city's most influential businessman? The pause before influential said everything. They all knew. Every person in this room understood exactly what Cupido was, what his money represented. They just didn't say it out loud. 6 months ago, I would have stammered, would have deflected or made excuses. Now, I smiled and met her eyes steadily. It feels like I finally have the resources to make a real difference. My father died drowning in medical debt. This foundation ensures other families won't face that same choice between treatment and bankruptcy. I gestured to the crowd. Mr. Davide's business interests may be controversial, but his money spends the same as anyone else's. And here, it's saving lives. The woman's smile faltered. I see. Well, how pragmatic. How necessary, I corrected gently. Idealism doesn't pay medical bills, Mrs. Chin. But this foundation will. She drifted away, and I felt Cupido's low laugh against my ear. You're getting good at that. At what? Making people uncomfortable with the truth while they're trying to make you uncomfortable with judgment. His arm slid around my waist, possessive and proud. My little ghost has learned to haunt back. The evening progressed in a blur of speeches and champagne, handshakes, and promises of future donations. I stood at the podium and spoke about my father, about loss, about the ring I wore that had traveled through 3 generations to end up here, legitimized, just like the money that had purchased this building. We can't change the past, I told the crowd, my voice steady. We can't undo the systems that failed my father and fail countless others every day. But we can choose what we build from those failures. We can choose to transform pain into purpose, loss into legacy. My eyes found Cupido in the crowd, found the man who'd taught me that choosing darkness didn't mean surrendering to it. We can choose to be more than our worst moments, to be more than what the world expects from us. The applause was polite, but I saw understanding in certain eyes. The ones who knew exactly whose money backed this foundation. The ones who understood the beautiful irony of a mafia fortune funding a charity to help the very people the underworld exploited. Later, after the crowds dispersed and the staff began cleanup, Cupido found me on the foundation's balcony, overlooking the city lights. He draped his jacket over my shoulders against the evening chill. 6 months ago, you were terrified to walk through my hallway, he said quietly. Now you're running a multi-million-euro foundation and staring down society matrons. 6 months ago, you were a man who hadn't hesitated in 15 years. I leaned back against his chest. Now you leave board meetings early to have dinner with your wife. Touché. His arms encircled me, and I felt him press a kiss to my temple. We've both changed. Is it enough? The question escaped before I could stop it. The foundation, the legitimacy, trying to balance your world with something good. Is it enough to matter? You're asking if good money erases bad deeds. His voice was thoughtful, not defensive. It doesn't. I'm not delusional enough to believe running a charity absolves me of the things I've done. His arms tightened. But you matter, Doroth. The lives this foundation will save matter. That has to count for something. I turned in his arms, studying the face that had once terrified me and now felt like home. The sharp jaw, the dark eyes, the slight scar above his eyebrow from the night he'd saved me in the market. Do you regret it? That night in the hallway when you froze. Every day. His honesty shouldn't have hurt, but it did, a sharp pain beneath my ribs. Then his hand cupped my face and his eyes softened. I regret that I made you afraid. That I was going to hurt you. That I've pulled you into a world where people try to kill you in markets and alleys. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But I don't regret what came after. I don't regret learning to feel again. To hesitate. To love something more than I love control. He leaned his forehead against mine. I don't regret you, even though I should. Even though you'd be safer if I did. I wouldn't be happier. No, no. I kissed him, tasting expensive whiskey and the mint he always kept in his pocket. I'd be invisible again. Going through motions of a life without ever really living it. You gave me that, Cupido. Not safety. Not comfort. But the chance to actually exist. To matter. To build something that means something. You would have built this anyway. You didn't need me, I needed your money. Your connections. Your name. I smiled at his frown. Don't look so offended. It's the truth. I used you, just like you used me to remember what being human felt like. My fingers traced the lapel of his shirt. The difference is, somewhere along the way, using each other turned into choosing each other. And that's when it became real. Below us, the city sprawled in light and shadow, a kingdom built on compromise and calculation. Cupido's kingdom, where violence and protection were two sides of the same blood-stained coin. But up here, on this balcony overlooking the foundation that bore my father's name, I felt like we'd carved out something different. Something that acknowledged the darkness while refusing to be consumed by it. Mrs. Davide. Paolo appeared in the doorway, his expression apologetic. The car is ready when you are. Mrs. Davide. 6 months and the name still felt surreal. The girl who'd counted champagne glasses and eaten leftover canapes was now the wife of the city's most feared man. The head of a legitimate charitable foundation funded by illegitimate means. A woman who wore her grandmother's sapphire alongside a wedding band that cost more than most people earned in a year. But more than any of that, I was chosen. Not saved, not rescued, not trapped. Chosen by a man who'd learned to hesitate. And I'd chosen him back, with full knowledge of what that choice meant. Ready? Cupido offered his arm, the gesture both formal and intimate. I took it, feeling the strength beneath the expensive fabric, the violence leashed by willpower and something that looked like love. Ready. As we walked through the foundation's halls, past photos of my father looking young and hopeful, past the mission statement I'd written about transforming pain into purpose, I caught our reflection in the polished marble. A monster in a tailored suit. A ghost who'd learned to haunt back. 2 broken people who'd somehow built something whole from their shattered pieces. The Davide legacy wasn't going to be clean or simple or easy to explain. It would always be complicated, always balanced on the knife's edge between redemption and damnation. But it would be ours. Built on choice, on frozen moments and second chances, on the impossibility of a love that shouldn't work but somehow did. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Thank you for listening until the very end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the story. There's another story like the one you just enjoyed on your left screen.